So Taylor Lorenz is panicking and afraid that she's about to get fired because the very industry that she helped weaponize against so many is coming crashing down and hard. Yeah, who would have guessed that trying to ruin the lives of celebrities like Johnny Depp or say YouTubers like myself might actually have consequences? You and I, we're going to listen to this today. Oh man, this is fun times too. This is fun times indeed. All right, so hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day. By the way, I hope you are doing excellently. Man, you can tell that Taylor Lorenz is about to get fired here. I mean, it is amazing. Just listen to this stuff.
The entire journalism industry is basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees. They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year. They laid off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on.
So you notice right off here two things. Number one, Taylor Lorenz doesn't understand this is your fault, or won't admit it at least. And number two, she doesn't know how to use a lapel mic. That you pin to your shirt, Taylor. That's why you don't have the pops the whole time. Lord.
But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs in the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news.
Major media companies like BuzzFeed News. Right there is a huge problem that has just been spoken. And Taylor Lorenz, straight-faced, thinks, hey, that's a place that you need to praise. That's a place that you need to actually get your news from. Yeah, that's exactly why people don't trust the media anymore.
News operations. Time magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And
you notice too that she held up Gawker in that. Now, you know, Gawker did some terrible things, but hey, that's the place that people like Taylor Lorenz came up in. Again, she could look introspectively, understand that a lot of these issues are her fault, but no, she's not going to do that. She's going to point the finger at billionaires and the companies that employ her because, again, she knows she's about to get fired.
And it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering. Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. Meanwhile, hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair, are on strike because they're also facing impending layoffs.
You hear that there? She just told you, admittedly, that there is one parent company controlling pretty much every narrative out there when it comes to magazines. I mean, that's why when you see places that go after someone that, say, wins in a courtroom, like a Johnny Depp, they go out and support an Amber Heard, that's not just a bunch of voices out there. No, that's one narrative being promoted again and again, and people have lost faith in that. I wonder whose fault that is.
Even mainstream national media outlets owned by billionaires like the Washington Post, where I work, and the Atlantic, where I used to work.
So you notice that she attacked the businesses that she has either worked at before or that she worked at now because billionaires owned by billionaires. Again, so much for loyalty, first of all, right? I mean, places that have pretty much promoted you even though you've gone out and doxed and done horrible things. And on top of that, again, who's to blame for this? Billionaires are, not the Taylor Lorenzes.
Have done layoffs. If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism. Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with. I don't think people understand how bad the world would be without journalists.
How bad the world would be without journalists. You know, again, they love that word, journalists. Like people like Taylor Lorenz are the people making the world better. Yeah, I'm sure going out and attacking celebrities, attacking YouTubers, you're just making the landscape so much better, right?
And let me just preface this by saying, for people that don't know my background, I did not go to journalism school. I built my own audience on the internet. I came from outside journalism and started as a blogger, and then entered into legacy journalism, a system that I have been incredibly, incredibly critical of pretty much my entire career. So I'm definitely
the industry that's collapsing here, that's an industry that I've always been critical of, by the way, huh? Wait a minute, which of these messages here doesn't actually belong together? It's funny, like I said, she's afraid she's about to get fired, but at the same time, I've always known that they have their problems.
Not some mainstream media defender. And I think the rise of citizen journalism on apps like TikTok, Instagram, and elsewhere has overwhelmingly been a positive thing. The journalism industry is overrun with elite, underqualified, rich, entitled Nepo babies, okay? And that part of it is terrible.
Wait a minute, isn't that a description of you, Taylor? I seem to remember before you started shutting down places that talked about your background. Yeah, elite, entitled. I seem to remember those being qualifications for yourself.
But that's not most journalists, and the majority of journalists losing their jobs in situations like this are the working journalists that are doing these investigations of police brutality, or investigating corporations, or holding power to account, or doing really thoughtful, brilliant cultural commentary.
Cultural commentary like, totally, those YouTubers are totally bad. Yeah, that's valuable. We really need that in our lives.
I don't want to live in a world where all of the news is delivered through 60-second TikTok videos with retention editing. And I think there's a ton of...
Says the person that's going in and airing this on TikTok, by the way.
...really talented journalists that are also just not great, social media people. I think of some of my friends who are journalists who do really deep investigations or local reporting, or sit through hour-long city council meetings to, hold some local politician to account. That's really important work, and it's work that somebody should pay for, and it's work that's not rewarded by these social media algorithms.
Who exactly should be paying for that, by the way? Because at the end of the day, the people that end up paying for it are the people that are sitting there at home. They decide what is or isn't valuable, and they're telling you point blank that you're not.
I would love if everyone could become independent journalists, but the economics are just not there. It's really, really hard to amass a subscriber base and then retain that subscriber base over time when you're doing investigative work. And that's if you don't get sued out of existence, by the way, after you publish the first critical story of a billionaire. And I will admit, a lot of these traditional media companies have accelerated their own demise. They ignored the internet for years. They're condescending to content creators and people outside their mainstream ecosystem. They constantly kowtow to corporate and political power. They have these false and deluded notions of objectivity, which, by the way, doesn't exist. And they push a lot of really racist, sexist, regressive crap. But that's not even...
So, buzzword the heck out of it while telling you, they ignored the internet, or they attack people, or, they've ignored certain items, which they shouldn't. Again, that's a Taylor Lorenz syndrome. I mean, right there, they bring in people like Taylor Lorenz thinking that they are a fix for something. They attack the very foundations of the things they should have supported, and they're out of touch. But hey, buzzwords, right?
Even why a lot of them are going out of business. A lot of them are going out of business fundamentally because the economics of the media ecosystem are broken. Most news companies used to monetize by advertising, and those ad dollars have been completely subsumed by Facebook and Google and tech giants. I don't really know where that leads us, other than a pretty dire place where there's really no check on corporate and political power in this country. I did write a lot about this in my book called Extremely Online, but I do...
Of course, she had to plug that book, by the way. Oh man, I wrote a lot about this on Extremely Online, and you should totally pick it up.
I do think that journalism is something a lot of people won't realize they miss until it's gone. The entire journalism